The grand marble staircase of the Harrison estate had never heard such a sound. Not in the 3 years since the accident. Not since little Lily Harrison had been confined to her wheelchair. Her legs forever still, her spirit slowly dimming like a candle running out of wax. But on this ordinary Tuesday afternoon, while millionaire James Harrison sat in his home office reviewing merger documents worth millions, a sound drifted down from the second floor that made his fountain pen slip from his fingers. It was laughter. Pure, unbridled, childlike laughter. The kind that bubbles up from somewhere deep in the soul and spills out like champagne overflowing from a glass. James felt his heart stop for a moment, then start again with a thunderous beat. That laugh belonged to Lily. His Lily. The daughter who hadn't laughed, truly laughed, since the car accident that had taken her mother and stolen her ability to walk. James pushed back from his mahogany desk so quickly that his leather chair spun wildly behind him. The quarterly reports scattered across the polished surface, forgotten in an instant. His Italian leather shoes clicked against the marble floor as he moved toward the staircase, each step quickening as the laughter continued, now joined by soft music, a gentle melody he didn't recognize. The sound pulled him upward, 2 steps at a time, his hand gripping the golden banister. His mind raced with questions and concerns. Was Lily hurt? Was something wrong? But no, that wasn't the sound of distress. It was joy. Raw, unfiltered joy. As he reached the landing, he could hear another voice now, soft and melodic, humming along with the music. It was Maria, the maid he had hired 6 months ago, when the last caregiver had quit. Unable to handle Lily's silence and withdrawal, Maria, who spoke with a slight Spanish accent and always smelled faintly of vanilla and cinnamon. Maria, who he barely noticed as she moved quietly through the house, keeping everything pristine while he buried himself in work. The door to Lily's room stood slightly ajar, golden afternoon sunlight spilling through the crack like liquid honey. James approached slowly, his breath caught somewhere between his chest and throat. He pressed his palm against the door, pushing it open just enough to see inside, and what he witnessed in that moment would forever change the landscape of his carefully controlled world. There, in the center of the room, was his 8-year-old daughter. But she wasn't in her wheelchair. She was standing. Her thin legs trembled with effort, her small hands gripping Maria's arms for support, but she was standing. Maria held her, gently, her strong arms providing just enough stability while allowing Lily to bear some of her own weight. They were moving together in a slow, careful dance, Maria's feet barely shifting as she helped Lily sway to the rhythm of the music flowing from a small radio on the dresser. Lily's face was transformed, illuminated not just by the sunlight streaming through the windows but by something internal. Something James hadn't seen in 3 long years. Hope. Maria was speaking softly, her words floating like feathers in the air between them. That's it, mi amor, feel the music in your heart. Your legs may be tired, but your spirit, oh your spirit, can dance forever. One more turn, yes, you are doing so beautifully. She guided Lily in a gentle spin, supporting most of her weight but making it look effortless, making Lily feel like she was truly dancing. The little girl's eyes were closed, her head tilted back slightly, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. She looked like she was flying. James stood frozen in the doorway, his hand pressed against his chest where his heart was performing its own chaotic dance. He watched as Maria carefully helped Lily back into her wheelchair, but instead of the defeat he expected to see on his daughter's face, there was triumph. Pure, radiant triumph. Did you see that, Maria? Lily gasped, her cheeks flushed pink with exertion and excitement. I stood for almost 5 whole minutes. That's longer than yesterday. Yesterday. James's mind reeled. How long had this been going on? Maria knelt beside the wheelchair, brushing a strand of dark hair from Lily's forehead with infinite tenderness. You did more than stand, pequeña. You danced. You flew. You showed the world that nothing, not even wheels, can stop a heart that wants to soar. She pulled a small notebook from her pocket, pink with unicorns on the cover, and made a mark. 5 minutes and 12 seconds. A new record. By next week, who knows, maybe 6 minutes. Lily clutched the notebook to her chest like it was made of gold. Do you really think I might walk again someday? Really, truly? The hope in her voice was so fragile, so precious, that James held his breath, waiting for Maria's answer. The maid took Lily's small hands in her own weathered ones, looking directly into the child's eyes. I think, amor, that miracles happen every day. Some big, some small. Today you danced. Tomorrow, who knows? But what I do know is that you are the bravest little warrior I have ever met, and warriors never give up. James must have made a sound, perhaps a sharp intake of breath, or the slight creak of the door, because suddenly both faces turned toward him. Lily's expression shifted through a kaleidoscope of emotions. Joy, surprise, then something that looked terrifyingly like fear. Daddy, she exclaimed, her hands immediately going to the wheels of her chair, as if to hide them. I was just... Maria was helping me. ... I'm sorry. I know you said I shouldn't try to stand because it's dangerous, and the doctors said... But James wasn't listening to her rushed explanations. He was moving across the room in 3 long strides, dropping to his knees beside his daughter's wheelchair, pulling her into an embrace so tight it might have hurt if it hadn't been exactly what both of them needed. He buried his face in her hair, breathing in the scent of strawberry shampoo and childhood, feeling her small arms wrap around his neck. You were dancing, he whispered, his voice thick with emotions he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. My baby girl was dancing. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were wet, something his business associates would have been shocked to witness. James Harrison, the man who had built an empire from nothing, who had negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, was crying in his daughter's pink and purple bedroom. He looked up at Maria, who had stepped back, her hands clasped in front of her, uncertainty written across her features. How? He asked simply. Maria shifted uncomfortably, clearly unsure if she was about to be praised or fired. Mr. Harrison, I'm sorry if I overstepped. I was a physical therapist before I came to America. In Mexico, I worked at a children's rehabilitation hospital. When I saw Lily, I recognized the look in her eyes, the same look I had seen in so many children who had been told they would never walk again. Sometimes, sir, the body just needs someone to believe in it again. James stood slowly, his knees protesting from kneeling on the hardwood floor. He walked to the window, looking out at the manicured gardens that stretched 4 acres, gardens that Lily used to run through with her mother, chasing butterflies and dreams. The doctors said she would never walk again, he said quietly. They said the spinal damage was too severe. They said we should accept it, adapt, move forward. He turned back to face them, his expression raw. I spent a fortune on the best specialists, the most advanced treatments. They all said the same thing. Impossible. Maria stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. With respect, Mr. Harrison, doctors see the body. They see X-rays and MRI scans and test results. They don't always see the spirit. They don't see the little girl who dreams of dancing at her quinceañera, who watches ballet videos on her tablet when she thinks no one is looking, who traces dance steps in the air with her fingers. Lily's eyes widened. You knew about the videos. Maria smiled, winking at her. I know everything, Piquega. It's my superpower. Then, more seriously, she addressed James. Mr. Harrison, I should have told you what I was doing. But Lily begged me not to. She was afraid you would worry, afraid you would be disappointed if she failed. We started small, just exercises in bed, then sitting exercises, then bearing weight for a few seconds. Today was our best day yet. James ran his hand through his hair, a gesture he only made when he was overwhelmed. You've been doing this in secret. For how long? 2 months? Lily said quietly. Maria said, we could surprise you for my birthday next month. I wanted to take just one step for you, Daddy. Just one step without the chair. Her voice cracked on the last word, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I wanted Mommy to see from heaven that I was trying. The mention of his late wife, Catherine, hit James like a physical blow. He closed his eyes, seeing her face, remembering her last words in the hospital. Take care of our baby, James. Don't let her light go out. When he opened his eyes again, he saw that light burning bright in his daughter's face, fed and nurtured by this unexpected angel in a maid's uniform. Show me, he said suddenly. Both Lily and Maria looked surprised. Show me the exercises. Show me everything. I want to be part of this. The joy that bloomed across Lily's face was like watching the sun rise after the longest, darkest night. Really, Daddy, you want to help? James knelt beside her again, taking her small hand in his large one. I've missed so much, baby girl. I've been so afraid of losing you like I lost Mommy that I forgot to help you live. Can you forgive me for... The next hour, Maria guided them through the routine. She showed James how to support Lily's weight, how to encourage her muscles without straining them, how to make it feel like play rather than therapy. She pulled out a worn notebook of her own, filled with detailed notes about Lily's progress, observations about which exercises worked best, which music made her most motivated. James was astounded by the level of care, the attention to detail, the pure dedication. This woman, whom he had hired to dust furniture and wash dishes, had been quietly performing miracles in his home. As the sun began to set, painting the room in shades of orange and pink, Lily grew tired. Maria helped her back into bed for a rest, and James found himself alone with the maid in the hallway. Maria, he began, then stopped, unsure how to express the tornado of gratitude and emotion swirling inside him. She held up a hand, smiling softly. You don't need to say anything, Mr. Harrison. I did not do this for thanks or for extra pay. I did it because I saw a little girl who needed someone to believe in her, and a father who had forgotten how to hope. In my country, we have a saying, La esperanza es lo último que se pierde, hope is the last thing you lose. You're Lily. She never lost it. She just needed someone to help her find it again. James studied the woman before him, really seeing her for perhaps the first time. She was in her 40s, with kind eyes, lined with the evidence of both laughter and tears. Her hands were strong but gentle, calloused from work but tender in their touch. You said you were a physical therapist in Mexico. Why did you leave? Why are you here cleaning houses? Maria's expression grew distant, sad. My husband was killed by a cartel. They wanted him to smuggle drugs in his delivery truck. He refused. They made an example of him. She paused, swallowing hard. I had to leave, had to start over somewhere safe. My credentials, they don't transfer here. To get licensed in America would take years and money I don't have, so I clean. But sometimes, God puts me where I'm needed. Like here, with Lily. James felt something shift inside his chest, tectonic plates of emotion grinding against each other. You're not a maid, he said firmly. Not anymore. From now on, you're Lily's private physical therapist. I'll pay for whatever credentials you need, whatever training. Name your salary. Maria's eyes widened. Mr. Harrison, that's not necessary. I'm happy to help Lily, as I have been. But James was already pulling out his phone, his CEO mode activated, but tempered with something softer. Maria, you gave me back my daughter's smile. You gave her hope. You gave me hope. There isn't enough money in the world to repay that, but I'm going to try. We're going to do this right. Proper equipment, proper support, and you at the center of it all. If you're willing. Maria's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Harrison, yes, Yes, I would be honored. From the bedroom, Lily's voice called out, Daddy, Maria, can we dance again tomorrow? James and Maria looked at each other and smiled. Every day, baby girl, James called back. Every single day, if you want. Over the following weeks, the Harrison house transformed. The formal living room, which had sat unused since Catherine's death, became a rehabilitation studio. Parallel bars were installed along one wall, soft mats covered the floor, and a stereo system filled the space with whatever music Lily chose. Some days it was classical ballet, others pop songs that made her giggle, and occasionally, when Maria brought her guitar, traditional Mexican folk songs that seemed to give Lily extra strength. James rearranged his entire schedule, working from home most days, taking calls between therapy sessions. His business partners were confused by the change in him. The cold, calculating James Harrison was suddenly leaving meetings early, postponing trips, and could occasionally be heard laughing during video conferences when Lily's voice drifted into his office. The progress was slow, sometimes heartbreakingly so. There were days when Lily's legs simply wouldn't cooperate, when the pain was too much, when frustration led to tears. On those days, Maria would hold her, whispering stories of brave princesses who conquered dragons, not with swords, but with determination. James would join them on the floor, the three of them forming a small circle of comfort and encouragement. He learned to braid Lily's hair while she did her stretches, to sing silly songs that distracted her during the hardest exercises, to celebrate the tiniest victories as if they were Olympic gold medals. But there were also days of triumph. The first time Lily stood for 10 minutes without crying. The day she took 3 steps holding only Maria's hands. The afternoon she stood by herself for 30 seconds, while James counted out loud, his voice shaking with pride. It was Maria who suggested they document everything, not just in notebooks, but in videos. Someday, she said, Lily will want to remember this journey. She'll want to see how far she's come. So James became the official videographer, capturing every moment, every laugh, every tear, every tiny step forward. The videos showed more than just Lily's physical progress. They showed a family being rebuilt. James dancing awkwardly with his daughter while she sat in her wheelchair, his business suit replaced with sweatpants and a t-shirt. Maria teaching them both traditional Mexican dances that could be adapted for Lily's limitations. The three of them collapsing in giggles when James attempted to lift Lily the way Maria did and nearly dropped her onto the soft mats. Everyone laughing so hard they cried. 6 months after that first day when James had heard laughter and found his daughter dancing, they faced their biggest challenge yet. Lily's 9th birthday was approaching, and she had set a goal. She wanted to walk from her wheelchair to her father, just 5 steps, without any help. The doctors Maria had finally convinced James to bring in were cautiously optimistic. The new therapy regime had strengthened muscles they thought were permanently damaged. There was no guarantee, they warned, but there was possibility. The night before her birthday, James found Lily in the therapy room with Maria. They weren't exercising. They were just sitting together, Maria braiding flowers into Lily's hair while humming softly. "Are you scared about tomorrow, Paquega?" Maria asked gently. Lily nodded. "What if I fall? What if I disappoint Daddy? What if I can't do it?" Maria turned Lily to face her, cupping the child's face in her hands. "Listen to me, brave girl. You have already done the impossible. You have already danced when they said you never would. You have already stood when they said you would only sit. Tomorrow, if you take those steps, it will be beautiful. If you don't, it will still be beautiful, because you tried. Your daddy loves you not for what your legs can do, but for who you are, and who you are is a warrior, a dancer, a miracle." James, standing unseen in the doorway, felt his heart swell with love for both of them. This woman who had entered their lives as a servant had become their salvation. This child who had been broken had become unbreakable. The next morning dawned, bright and clear. The therapy room had been decorated with balloons and streamers, transformed into a celebration space. A small group had gathered, just the three of them, plus the doctor and a physical therapy specialist Maria had trained with. Lily sat in her wheelchair at one end of the room, wearing a new dress, purple with silver stars, that twirled when she moved. James stood 5 steps away, his arms open, trying to keep his expression calm and encouraging despite the storm of emotions inside him. Maria knelt beside Lily's chair. "Remember, Paquega, the music lives in your heart. Let it carry you." She pressed play on the stereo, and the same soft melody that had played that first day filled the room. Lily gripped the arms of her wheelchair, pushing herself up. Her legs shook, but she stood. The room held its breath. She lifted her right foot, placed it forward. 1 step. Her left foot followed. 2 steps. She wobbled, arms windmilling, and everyone tensed, but she found her balance. 3 steps. 4 steps. On the 5th step, her legs gave out. But James was there, catching her, lifting her up into his arms, spinning her around as she laughed and cried simultaneously. "I did it, Daddy. Did you see? I walked to you." James held her tight, his own tears flowing freely. "You did it, baby girl. You flew." Over his shoulder, he saw Maria wiping her eyes, smiling that radiant smile that had brought light back into their darkened world. He reached out his free arm, and she hesitated only a moment before stepping into their embrace. The 3 of them stood there, a family not of blood, but of choice, of struggle, of triumph. That video, the one of Lily taking those 5 steps, would eventually be watched millions of times across the world. But before it became inspiration for strangers, it was simply a moment of pure joy in a room full of people who had learned that miracles weren't always instant. Sometimes they came in small steps, in daily decisions to try again, in the choice to believe when logic said not to. The video would show Lily's steps, but it wouldn't fully capture the love that made them possible. The dedication of a woman who saw potential where others saw impossibility. The transformation of a father who learned that protecting his daughter meant helping her fly, not keeping her grounded. 3 years later, Lily would dance at her school recital, still using her wheelchair for longer distances, but able to stand and move for entire songs. Maria would be in the front row, no longer a maid, but a certified physical therapist with her own practice, still coming to the Harrison house, not for work, but for family dinners. James would be there too. No longer the cold millionaire who had heard laughter upstairs and frozen in shock, but a father who had learned that the greatest fortune wasn't in his bank account but in the laugh of his daughter and the dedication of a woman who had taught them both to dance again. The recital program would list Lily Harrison as the lead dancer, with a small note at the bottom, dedicated to Maria Santos, who taught me that dancing isn't about perfect legs, but about a heart that refuses to stop moving. The story could end there, with triumph and transformation, but life continued beyond that perfect moment. There were setbacks, days when Lily's condition worsened, when the pain returned, when the wheelchair felt like a prison again. But there were also victories. The day Lily walked across the stage at her high school graduation, the afternoon she danced at Maria's wedding to a kind man who understood that he wasn't just marrying Maria, but joining a family. The morning she stood as maid of honor at her father's wedding to a woman who had learned to love not just James, but the entire unconventional family he came with. Each of these moments was a testament to that first day, when a millionaire heard laughter upstairs and discovered that his maid was performing a miracle. The house still echoes with laughter. Now, 20 years later, Lily is a physical therapist herself, specializing in pediatric spinal injuries, telling every young patient about Maria, the woman who believed in impossible things. James has converted his fortune into a foundation that provides free therapy for children whose families can't afford it. Each clinic named Maria's Dance Studio, and Maria, now in her 60s, still dances. She teaches children who have been told they'll never walk. Shows them videos of a little girl named Lily who proved the doctors wrong. Not through magic, but through daily choice, to try, to believe, to dance even when dancing seemed impossible. In the end, the story that began with a millionaire hearing laughter upstairs became legend. Not because of the wealth or the miracle, but because of love. Love that looked like a maid who saw a broken child and decided to help her heal. Love that looked like a father learning to hope again. Love that looked like a little girl who refused to let wheels define her limits. The laughter that had frozen. James Harrison, in his tracks that day, had been the sound of resurrection, of life refusing to surrender to circumstance. And in that refusal, in that daily decision to dance despite everything, they had all found their way back to joy. The millionaire had heard laughter upstairs and frozen when he saw his maid dancing with his disabled daughter. But in that frozen moment, everything had begun to thaw, to move, to dance, toward a future none of them could have imagined, but all of them had dared to hope for. Epilogue. The dance continues. Sometimes the most profound changes in our lives come not from grand gestures, but from simple acts of kindness. Maria had entered the Harrison home as a maid, someone meant to be invisible, to clean and disappear. Instead, she became the catalyst for a miracle that rippled outward, touching thousands of lives. Every child who learns to take a step in one of the Foundation's clinics, every parent who finds hope in Lily's story, every family that discovers that disability doesn't mean inability. They all danced to the rhythm that started in a pink and purple bedroom, where a maid dared to lift a little girl from her wheelchair and show her she could fly. The dance continues. In therapy rooms and living rooms, in hospitals and homes, wherever someone chooses to believe in the impossible, to see potential where others see limitation, to offer their strength to someone who has temporarily lost their own. It continues because Maria taught them all that dancing isn't about perfect bodies or flawless technique. It's about the courage to move when movement seems impossible, to find rhythm in the midst of chaos, to create beauty from brokenness. And so they dance, all of them, in their own ways, to their own music, carrying forward the legacy of a maid who saw a millionaire's disabled daughter not as a tragedy but as a dancer waiting to be discovered. The laughter that had once frozen James Harrison in shock had become the soundtrack of their lives, a melody of hope that would echo through generations, reminding everyone who heard it that miracles don't always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes they come quietly, in the form of someone who sees you not as you are, but as you could be, and loves you enough to help you bridge the distance between the two. That is the true story of the millionaire, who heard laughter upstairs and froze when he saw his maid dancing with his disabled daughter. Not just a story of physical healing, but of hearts learning to beat again, of a family built from loss and found in love, of the dance that continues long after the music stops, carried in the hearts of all who dare to believe that tomorrow can be different from today, that limitations are just invitations to find new ways to soar.